Leah, welcome to Podcastina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thanks for coming on. Do you mind if we start with just a little bit of background about what it is you do?
Yeah, sure. So I am an ADHD life and mindset coach. So I really work with fellow ADHDers, usually diagnosed later in life. And if they weren't diagnosed later in life, they are certainly taking it more seriously at this point. A lot of the people that I work with come to me by the time they're kind of really fed up with their own BS, if you will. So really working with adult ADHDers who are intelligent, capable, and often incredibly frustrated because they know what they should be doing, but can't seem to consistently or even persistently execute. My work is not about fixing or curing ADHD. That is not what we do over here. That is not realistic nor sustainable. But it's more about helping people understand how their brain actually works, reduce shame, build systems that work with their wiring instead of constantly kind of fighting against it. I think most people that I work with don't need more discipline or better planners. They really need less self-blame and better strategies.
Somebody who's living with ADHD, what does it feel like and how does it kind of show up in different areas of their life?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, especially for the non-ADHDers out there that might be living with or working with or married to an ADHDer. So one of the biggest misconceptions is that ADHD is just distraction. Another misconception is that ADHD is attention deficit, right? It's right there in the name. But if we could rename it, we would. It is not a lack of attention. It is a lack of regulation of where to put said attention. So it's also not just distraction. It really is, like I said, a regulation disorder, and it shows up everywhere. It's not just, oh, you're a little bit late. Everybody will say, like, everybody has a little bit of ADHD. And while that's true, yeah, I mean, definitely people are going to have moments of disorganization and forgetfulness. I use this example a lot, and it's a little bit unsavory, but people are like, oh. So people are like, everybody has a little bit of ADHD. And I always say, yeah, and everybody goes to the bathroom every day. But if you're going to the bathroom 187 times a day, imagine how that's going to impact your life. So that's really kind of the difference of actual ADHD is the impact that it has on our day-to-day life. It doesn't show up neatly. It's more kind of like a chain reaction. So if you struggle with, I'll kind of go through some different executive functions. If you struggle with self-awareness, you're not sitting around going, oh yeah, I am avoiding this because I'm overwhelmed. Now, sometimes we can get to that point. That's obviously the goal. But in the beginning, you just feel stuck or resistant. Or if planning and prioritizing are messy, which for most of us they are, you don't know where to start. So then task initiation goes out the window. If focus is a little bit slippery, you jump between things, which then blows up organization. And then you add in emotional deregulation, frustration, stress, impulse stuff, and staying on track becomes really, really difficult because your brain is busy managing feelings at that point. And then you've got working memory. And that's the part where you forget a step or you forget what you were doing. You lose track of what was going on and you feel like you're constantly starting over. So what that looks like is laziness or a lack of effort, but it's often just multiple executive functions colliding at once. So yeah, I mean, this can show up at work with starting, prioritizing, deadlines, at home with organization, routines, clutter, emotions with overwhelm, frustration, sensitivity, time with chronic lateness, underestimating how long or how short tasks will take, relationships, people pleasing, guilt, shame, all the things. So they're all interconnected. And when one area struggles, it really does create this domino effect. And that's why I go back to saying it is the impact. So it is not just one place where ADHD kind of shows up. Now it's a spectrum. So how it shows up for me is going to be different than how it shows up for, my dad or my best friend or, and so, yeah, all of these different executive functions are going to show up differently for us. But ADHD at the end of the day is a cluster of all of those things going awry. So what it really does is, if you think about an ADHD brain, a lot of times there's no dimmer switch. Like everything is either too much or not enough. And so finding that balance of just enough dopamine is the $1 million question.
It sounds like it's hard to sit with that, especially if maybe you don't know that that's what's going on for you, but you're having all these experiences like what you just described, and maybe not being able to, it's like the double-edged sword of why it's good that there's kind of this like diagnostic trend people are discovering in really kind of unconventional ways, like TikTok, they're self-diagnosing and they're like, hey, I really relate to all this stuff. And even having the opportunity for the people who only experience it a little, probably not at like a diagnostic level, but who have those moments throughout their day to be like, that's what this is. And hopefully that's moving towards kind of normalizing it in general so that it doesn't come with this like big stigma like it did when I was growing up.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah. And I think, a lot of the work that I do as a coach, working with people, a big part of that is not only the self-awareness to be like, okay, wait, what's going on? I've been putting off this email for 3 days. And actually allowing yourself to sit with the discomfort of, oh, well, if I send this email, I could get rejected, right? Maybe it's me sending a sales pitch to somebody or something. But really kind of sitting with what's at the root of what's going on. So that self-awareness piece, but then also the self-acceptance piece of like, oh, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I've got a million different things going on. I've got 1,000 tabs open and my brain is firing at all of these. What do I need in this moment? So again, about that regulation piece of how to help regulate yourself.
What do you think are some common misconceptions that people have about ADHD?
I mean, I would say, like I said, like that kind of that it's just focus, or it's just like, oh, you're a little bit late. I think a common misconception is how, I don't want to say all consuming, because that makes it sound very like, we're all just over here like, oh, life is terrible. And that's not the case at all. But, and I think especially before you really get into, oh, this is how my brain works, this is why things show up that way, it can be a little bit like, why can I not get my shit together? And so frustrating, where people are like, just get your shit together. Right. And so, I think it's this common misconception that we're lazy or we lack compassion. Well, you're always late, so you must not care. So things like that, I think can be, definitely a bit of a misconception just all the way around when it comes to executive functioning. And it's painful because ADHDers tend to internalize these struggles. And so a lot of the work that I do, I mean, I say this on a daily basis, there's no morality tied to ADHD. And society will try to do that. And, we had a brief conversation earlier. I can get that, how people that don't understand what this, feels like and how it shows up are not like, dude, you're just being rude. It's just rude. And, that does get into that fine line of like, it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to see how do these things affect our relationships and show up for other people. And we can have conversations about that and communicate what we need out of a situation. But there are times where we do have to show up. We do have to do the uncomfortable, difficult, doesn't come naturally to us thing. And that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why these conversations are as important as they are, because not only does it like destigmatize it, but it takes the, I guess, the personal affect out of it, of that if I am in some kind of relationship, whether it's personal, professional, romantic, with someone who is struggling with ADHD, that the ADHD behaviors are not a slight against me. They're not intentionally there to punish me or to disorient me. And then on the flip side of it, if you're the one with the ADHD, that yes, it's something that you do need to cope with and find ways to work around it, but it doesn't mean you need to sit in this place of self-loathing and, oh, there's something wrong with me, I'm broken, I can't fix this. Because as we're going to get into the conversation more, there's fixes for this. There's like systems that you can put in place to help you and to like soften the blow of how some of these behaviors play out in what might not be a productive way.
Yeah. Exactly. There are definitely ways to work with all of this. Are they all like 100% foolproof? Do you, is it a switch that you can flip? No, it's still definitely something that, I just wrote an email this morning about like your things have a home. My headphones have to be on my desk or in this bag. That is the only two places that they are allowed to be. If I see them somewhere else, I have to stop and go put them on the desk. And that is annoying as hell. I'll just be honest. It sucks, right? Especially I'm at my parents' house now, but my house in Germany, my room is upstairs, my desk is downstairs. So if I see that, like it is, nope, you have to take them downstairs, because how many times do we look for things and we can't find them and then we're already in a hurry and we're running late, blah, blah, blah. So we do have to set up things for ourselves and stick to it. Right. And this leads into more of that work of like, what kind of person do you want to be? And again, this is not perfect. I still lose my headphones, but really trying to say, no, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm the kind of person that does what she says she's going to do. Not 100% of the time. We're working on ish here. So it's like mostly, right? And there are days where I see my headphones and I'm like, it's fine. And I always pay the price. I always pay the price for that. But again, doing things intentionally. Yeah, I'm going to leave the headphones on the nightstand. If I remember they're there, remember they're there. If not, it's kind of a choice at that point. So, but yeah, I think some of that kind of goes into, like I said, those common misconceptions of this is a disorder that it really is, so many words to describe it, but it's painful and it's annoying for everybody, right? It's not just for us or just for the people that don't have it. And I think that's where communication is so huge, right? If you live by yourself and you don't really mind if the dishes kind of pile up and then you do the dishes by yourself, sweet, lean in, accept it. If you live with other people, it becomes unacceptable, right? And so that's where you have to have those conversations. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get better about this. If you see them in there, just give me a yell. I don't want you to have to do that. I don't want you to have to parent me. But this is a real struggle for me, or, whatever it is. Leaving laundry in the washer. I do this all the time. It's terrible. My washer does not have like an alarm to alert me. It's the bane of my existence is leaving laundry in the washer for 3 days. And that's even worse because I live in Europe. We don't have a dryer. So you have to plan out. You have to plan out, especially in the winter, like a week ahead of time, if you need to wear something needs to be washed. So yeah, just communicating what your needs are. But again, it goes back to that self-awareness. You have to be aware of what your needs are to be able to communicate them. And then we have to look at the shame aspect of, shame will play into asking for what you need because I should be able to just remember. It's fun.
So I'm endlessly fascinated by the fact that with a lot of ADHD people, the symptoms show up the same ways. They're very consistent. Like, we spoke of the laundry thing because I lived with someone who's very ADHD, and she would leave her clothes in the washer, and it was like a whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm very type A, so that kind of stuff stresses me out. And for me, it's so natural to, even with the headphones example, all my stuff has a home. Like, that's my number one thing, is everything has a home. And so that way, if I lose something, no, I don't, because I know where it's supposed to be. I only ever leave it in one place. So it's interesting for me, like, what is that? Why is it you're going through so many similar things as other ADHD people? And why is the object permanence such a thing? Because tell me if this is relevant to you. Another thing that my very ADHD roommate did all the time was she would buy things like for the kitchen, things for the pantry, and she would forget that she bought those things. And so we'd be like going through the fridge, going through the freezer periodically, and she would be like, "Is this yours?" And I'm like, "No, how do you not remember that it's yours? What do you mean? Like, I know everything I buy."
Oh, bless her. And bless you, because that would be amazing. Yeah, I mean, we've got prefrontal cortex going on. We've got the amygdala going on. We've got a lot of these things are, the dopamine of the situation. Ooh, those pickles. I love those. I don't know if we have some. I'm going to get some just in case. Right. This also goes back to working memory. Working memory is part of that object permanence. If I do not see it, not going to happen. It's just, my brain is more akin to Teflon than it is to Velcro.
What a great analogy.
Yeah. So when things come in, unless I'm really interested in it, it's going to kind of slip around a little bit. Whereas in your brain, and they stick. Right. So yeah, it really is. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked about this too, about, forgetting things that are in the fridge. Okay. What do you need to do? You need to put a whiteboard on the front of your fridge and write what you've just put in there. And as you finish it, you cross it off. Every time you open the fridge, take a look at the list. What's in there? Oh yeah, those pickles. Oh yeah, that really fancy cheese that I bought that I don't want to, go bad, that kind of thing. Because too, I mean, like I said, we do not have ducks in a row. We have squirrels at a rave, more than likely on acid, if we're being honest. And so they are just here, there, and everywhere. So those pickles that I bought last week, not a chance. I have had 4 billion thoughts since I bought those pickles. It doesn't have a chance to stay in my brain that way. There's no way. So I have to externalize. I have to externalize my brain. That's why you hear people like, make lists and set alarms. And people are like, oh my God, if you tell me to make a list or set an alarm one more time. But there's a reason. And that is because, again, our brains are more like Teflon. They're like envelopes. So our brains can handle like what you can put in here. And we try to treat them like a storage unit. This is what we're working with. We're working with a normal, letter-sized envelope. We are not working with a storage unit. And people will spend so much energy trying to remember the pickles. Why? There's a system for that. It's annoying. I don't love having to write things on a whiteboard when I get home from the grocery. One more thing to do. Is it going to help me save money and keep things from going bad and help my fridge not smell? Yeah, all right. I guess I can do that then. Right?
No, I'm so glad we're talking about kind of these less highlighted areas. I'm sure for people who are ADHD listening to this, they're like, yeah, obviously I understand that I struggle with memory issues, struggle with object permanence, but I think those are categories that aren't spoken about as often and aren't as like common in everyday lexicon of people talking about it. I think it's like, oh, you get distracted easily, or, you can't finish a task. Those are like the well-known areas, but it's so important that people understand the object permanence and the memory and the kind of like limited capacity for that too, because those are unfortunately the kind of symptoms that come off to other people as just like assholery, where it's like you're not intending to be a certain like a problematic way or like forget things. Like that's not your intention. It just really is like your brain is different and it's not built with those things, and they all fall under that category.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, I mean, yes, some people that have ADHD, it depends on where they are, like in their journey. Some people really don't realize what their ADHD is and how it shows up and how many different areas it overlaps. And depending on how you were raised, the caregivers you were raised with, the teachers you had, the friends you had, the coaches you had, you take a lot of that on as I'm just a shitty person and I don't want to be, right? Like this assholery is not on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to not do this. And so a lot of people, and you'll hear about masking with ADHD and all of that kind of stuff, but you'll hear about a lot of people feeling kind of square peg, round hole, walking through the world as it is set up. And so that can be really, I wish I was, I am this way, but I want to be more like my roommate. So I'm just going to white knuckle it and try to do the things. And you just end up feeling like shit and you have no energy and you wonder why you're exhausted and burnt out all the time.
Let's talk about why this seems to predominantly impact women.
Yeah, I think that is really interesting because it doesn't. No, and it really it can show, maybe that is what you're seeing based on your algorithms, based on your guests, based on the conversations that you've had, based on the roommate that you had, that kind of thing. But I don't think that it is more prevalent in women, and it's certainly underdiagnosed in women. What we see a lot of is boys tend, and all of this is very general, so please don't come for me in the comments. All of this is, boys get diagnosed, I think like 35-40% more than girls, because boys tend to exhibit more of the hyperactive impulsivity side of ADHD. So there's inattentive, there's hyperactive, impulsive, and there's combined. Girls tend to be hyperactive, but here, boys tend to be hyperactive, especially like when we're younger. If we think about ADHD, I'm 41. So like my generation, we think of ADHD and we think of the 8-year-old little boy that was bouncing off the walls in the classroom that was on Ritalin. Like that's what you think of. They were more disruptive than me staring out the window at these 2 squirrels that are playing in my backyard currently. That's not as disruptive. That is just more like, hey, what are you doing? Whereas the little boy that's being hyperactive can't sit in his seat and he's over here drumming and like, so they're like, dude, what the hell's wrong with this kid? So boys end up being diagnosed far more than girls. It is becoming more of obviously a thing, like you said, TikTok and this and that. So, and I love this. I cannot remember who said this. It was people talking about, ADHD being overdiagnosed these days and everybody's being diagnosed. And why is that? And I love it. Whoever said this, and gosh, can I get it right? She's like, yes, more people are being diagnosed with ADHD, just like we saw more stars after the invention of the telescope.
Yeah.
Right? We're becoming more aware of it. We're seeing it more. We've got tools to understand it more. So yeah, it is becoming more prevalent. I also think that nowadays women are just more apt to talk about it. We're just more vocal in that way of what's showing up for us and how it's showing up for us as far as ADHD, perimenopause, like all of these different kinds of things. They are, same thing. Women have gone through perimenopause since the beginning of time. You never heard about it. until it started becoming more of like a, what the hell's going on? Wait a second. So that's not being overdiagnosed. I mean, how much more do you hear about it now than you heard about it even 10 years ago, especially perimenopause? So yeah, it's just that there is more awareness and there's better tools.
Absolutely. So how does this kind of tie into if you have it all your life, you come out the womb with this, there's a correlation between people with ADHD and a tendency to people please. Can you expand on where that comes from?
Yeah, so people pleasing often becomes a coping strategy. So if you grow up feeling like you are too much, too messy, too loud, too chatty, too forgetful, you start overcompensating by being agreeable and helpful. So people pleasing for ADHDers is rarely, I mean, not always, but it's not about necessarily being nice. It's about avoiding rejection. So how can I do the thing you need me to do? How can I just say yes so that you won't reject me? Because I'm too much in all these other areas. I'm too loud, too messy, too forgetful, and too late. But you need me to do this really inconvenient thing that might make you like me. Done. Sold. Because I can make up for my too muchness if I say yes, even when I don't want to, even when it doesn't fit in with my values and my morals and my timeline and all of that. If I can help compensate for all this other shit that's bad with this that's good, then maybe you'll like me more. And in such, liking me won't reject me.
It's so important to know that, because I think it might kind of point people in the direction of maybe they don't notice the ADHD qualities in themselves, but maybe they're noticing like just a level of people pleasing that they should pathologize that isn't okay, and that's like creating dysfunction in their lives. Maybe that can be like an arrow to be like, what's underneath this, and to explore why that's coming up, and maybe figure out that, oh, there's something underlying here that I can correct and I can like get out from under this.
Yeah, I mean, and to this, a lot of this stuff does again go back to what were the ways that you were raised? Were you able to show your worth by saying yes or helping out, or and this can go, emotional people pleasing as well, where you kind of the middleman between people or whatever, and kind of emotionally saying yes to things. You carry that with you. Oh, that worked with mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, teacher, whoever. I need to keep doing that, even at my own detriment, because at least they still think I'm a good person.
Mm-hmm. So at what point does it become self-sabotage?
Yeah, I mean, self-sabotage is a really interesting thing. Self-sabotage is often projective logic, right? So you're avoiding overwhelm, avoiding failure, avoiding responsibility, avoiding discomfort, uncertainty, unfamiliarity. We've all heard the adage that your nervous system, well, if you haven't heard it, you hear it here now. Your nervous system will always choose familiarity over uncertainty. You will choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven 10 out of 10 times if it's left up to your nervous system. Because even if that familiarity, toxic relationships are toxic and ruining your life, it's familiar and you're still alive. And your nervous system equates familiarity with staying alive. right? So comes down to a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily sabotage, I mean, though sometimes it is, it's protection. So spotting those patterns is really big. When do I do this? What triggers it? What feeling am I avoiding? Again, asking those like really gross, uncomfortable questions. Again, discomfort. What is I'm doing like a lot of quotes today. I don't know what's going on. What's the saying of like, your growth is directionally proportionate with the level of uncomfort or of discomfort you're willing to sit with, something like that.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's true, especially as we go through these like self-discovery, self-healing journeys. Shit's going to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to look yourself, your behaviors, your patterns, all of that squarely in the eye. And that's not, it's not where we have to start. For anybody that, thinks that my services and coaching could be helpful. That's not where you have to start, but it is kind of the place that you need to go so that you can really figure out what's going on. Why do I keep doing this same stuff that keeps derailing me, keeps throwing me off track? And again, there's not a switch that we can flip, but we can start making those small steps. A lot of ADHDers, bless us, we want like quantum leap changes. I want to, whether it's take a pill. I mean, so many people are like, just give me the meds. I was that girl. I was like, just give me the meds. Everything will be fine. Took the meds. Hated the meds. I was like, well, shit. I guess this is it. I don't really know what else to do. We really want that instant gratification in all things. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this ain't that. We have to sit with getting to know what's actually happening, leaning into how our brains work. So the 4 pillars of kind of what I work with: self-awareness, self-acceptance, radical honesty, and minute action. All of those kind of come into play.
I love that a lot. I think a familiar experience for both ADHD people and those of us who love ADHD people is watching them fixate and actually get hyper-focused on sometimes something that seems so meaningless and random. And what are some of the like little baby steps that someone can take to harness that energy of, let's say you're fixating on the squirrels or whatever thing where you're like, okay, so I see you are capable of concentrating on a thing, but how do you take that concentration out of a task that doesn't matter and start to apply it to a task that you've been dodging, that you are supposed to be handling?
Yeah. So, I mean, this goes back to, again, so many executive functions. We're talking about impulse control. We're talking about emotional regulation. We are talking about, a lot of other things that come into that hyper-focused state. So ADHD and the way that our brains are structured, we do not give a damn about the priority. We care about the dopamine. So do you. You care about the dopamine as well, but your brain mechanics work in a way that you can override that because your dopamine level is at pretty solid baseline. I have to constantly work to get my dopamine levels to a baseline. And dopamine is reward, motivation, feeling good about doing the thing. So if we're constantly in the basement of that and like scrambling to get out, of course we're going to do the things that just give us more of that, more of that, and more of that to our own detriment, like I said. So, I mean, one of the, and we could write a whole book on just this topic. People have actually. One thing that I like to just kind of at a basic level of ADHD management is dopamine stack. So you're currently hyper-focused on, I've got one client that is currently hyper-focused on the Sims game. like SimCity. I know, loves it, like obsessed. I, thank God, am not a gamer. Otherwise, I'm sure I'd be right there with them. So we're using that as her reward, right? So you do the thing that needs to be done. You send the email. you reward yourself with a little bit of Sims. Now, this gets really nuanced because it's not email, Sims, email, Sims, email, Sims. That's way too much task switching. We can't handle that. So we have to set some parameters. All right, I need to sit down, no other distractions, phone in the other room, Sims is blocked on my computer. I have to get this piece of work done, and I need to set a timer, preferably one that I can see. So they've got the timers that you can turn and you can see the time, because we're time blind. We don't see the passing of time the same way that you do. So we want to set that, work on it, and then I get to play Sims. Maybe that still doesn't work for you. We're going to experiment with this. Maybe that looks like I do not play Sims until 5 p.m. and then it's free reign. I can play until my bedtime of 10 p.m. Right? We're going to tweak that as well. Is that working for you? Like, does that feel good? After the dopamine hit? Probably not, because you haven't eaten, you haven't drank anything. You know, we've got friends that haven't seen you in 2 weeks because all you've done is worked in Sims. You haven't seen sunlight, right? So we have to kind of play with these things. Another thing with dopamine stacking is, I love a podcast. Heyo, listen to this one if you're needing some dopamine stacking. So get yourself a podcast, listen to it while you do the dishes, listen to it while you fold the laundry. Same thing with an audiobook. I love an audiobook. Tell me a story and I will do what needs to be done, especially if it's something really good and I'm really invested in. Some really good music, something to like get you up and get you going, move around. Use that first song to just dance. You don't have to do the dishes. Just dance it out and then do the dishes. Another great thing to kind of play with when it comes to kind of task initiation and that kind of stuff, time your activities. How long does it actually take you to load the dishwasher? 8 minutes? Your brain's going to tell you it's 45. As an ADHDer. How long does it take you to actually vacuum the living room? Again, I don't know, 10 minutes? Your brain will tell you it's an hour. Looking at different ways that your brain works as far as like, and you know, you being neurotypical and very type A, you're going to be like, what are you talking about? You don't have to do the things the way that other people do them. So if somebody's like, oh, I'm cleaning the house today. So if you say that, you're like, oh, cleaning the house today. You're cleaning your house. You're cleaning the kitchen. You're cleaning the bathroom. You're cleaning your bedroom. You don't have to do that. If you're in the bathroom and you're like, oh, that sink's looking a little, you can just clean the sink. That's it. If you are looking in your mirror and you're like, oh, that mirror's got all kinds of water spots and toothpaste on it, just clean the mirror. If you're doing little steps like that, just vacuum the living room. Just wipe down the counters. Doing these little steps are so much bigger than I'm going to clean the whole house. Ugh. I am almost never going to be motivated to do that. And as ADHDers, we struggle with motivation anyway. We are more of a momentum people. Momentum is where we really shine. So come up with some momentum tasks. What are some things that are really easy, low-hanging fruit, just to get the ball rolling? Keep going from there. And then you can still have your hobbies and your other hyper focuses. Again, it comes down to awareness. I have gone down this rabbit hole of what natural supplements best, help my hair grow. Okay, well, that information's still going to be there after I, like I said, create that resource or jump on that call or record that video. It's going to be there. Now I need to write it down if that's something that I really want to remember. Supplements for hair growth, because that is why a lot of times we interrupt things, we task switch because we're afraid we're going to forget it, which, spoiler, we do. That's why the fear is there. So externalize your brain. Even if you never go back to it, who cares? Write it down. Natural supplements for hair growth. Okay, sweet. I can go back to that later. You might go back to it later and be like, who cares? I'm over it. Okay, cool. No big deal. We don't have to live on hard mode all the time. We can lean into being like, oh yeah, that's right.
I like that a lot. When you said dopamine stacking, it like reminded me of habit stacking from Atomic Habits, that
Yes.
James Clear book that I think a lot of people are familiar with. I mean, that's productive for me too, even as someone who like doesn't. I of course experience certain ADHD thing. Even just this morning, I was like, oh well, I got to plug this in, and I'm in the kitchen, and now I got to go in the bedroom, and now I left the Keurig on, and blah blah blah. Like it happens to all of us, and I think like a really effective tool that I got from that book was also designating certain areas in my home for certain things, where like I do not work in the bed because the bed is for sleeping. I do not do things for fun at my desk because the desk is for working, and kind of having these like almost invisible barricades and boundaries around certain pieces of furniture in my house to make sure that if I'm sitting down at my desk, I do not scroll on my phone at my desk. So I'm going to make sure that like if I feel an intense impulse to scroll on my phone, go to the couch or go, kind of have these systems. And then on top of that, having, as you mentioned, the dopamine thing in place of if you're really annoyed at a task, you've been dodging it, just be like, okay, when I'm done with this task, create this reward system. Oh, I can go eat my string cheese or go have a Diet Coke or whatever your thing is, of like, treat it like you're trying to train a dog with tricks and there has to be a little treat at the end of it. And as you said, it could be a podcast, it could be music. It doesn't actually have to be something you eat. But I think setting up a reward at the end of an undesirable task is helpful for people, whether they have ADHD or not.
So with the podcast and with the audiobook and with the music, do that at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I will get more done if I am listening to a really good book that I want to know what is going to happen. I will literally be like, okay, what can I clean?
Mm-hmm.
What else can I do? Because I'm not just going to sit on my couch and listen to an audiobook. I'm not a psychopath, right? So I need to be up moving a little bit. Now it has to be like thinkless tasks. I can't be, writing my newsletter while listening to this really good book. That's too many parts of my brain trying to work. But vacuum, heck yeah. Dishes, done. Laundry, sure. Because it gives me an excuse to listen to the thing that I want to do. So the book at that point is my dopamine. And if I'm stacking it with something that doesn't give me dopamine, it makes the non-dopamine thing more palatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And looking at, I love Atomic Habits, even though it is not ADHD or neurodivergent specific, it is still such a great book. And I use it all the time. From your 5 to 9 is going to dictate your 9 to 5. So what does the night before look like? I've written so many emails about the night before. You're more regulated the night before. Time works differently the night before. So if you have to get up and be out the door, what takes you 10 minutes the night before will take you 25 in the morning. That's just how it works. And with ADHDers, probably even more. So really, looking at that. Also looking at the barrier to entry on things, the friction, right? We want to reduce the friction that we are, setting ourselves up for. And a lot of times we don't even know that we're doing it. So, friction is anything that makes starting or continuing feel mentally heavy. So too many steps, too many decisions, too much or too little stimulation, too much overwhelm, an unclear starting point. Our brains are incredibly sensitive to activating energy. So if something feels too big, too boring, too vague, our brains are going to resist engaging. And so really looking at an example I always give of, if I want to go to the gym, I need to get up and immediately put on yoga pants and a sports bra. The sports bra putting on a bra will keep me at home. I'll be like, yeah, no, I can't be bothered. I can't. I hate it. I'm not here for it. And that will be my that will be the thing. And it sounds so silly. But that will be the barrier to entry for me. So if I can just cut that out immediately as I get up, this is what I do. Even if I don't go to the gym, at least I'm ready to go to the gym. So we're trying to reduce those barriers to entry and the friction point for things.
How can the people around the ADHDer support them without it sounding overly critical or without you being annoyed because I keep telling you to set alarms and make lists? Like, what's the effective way to support the person without criticizing them to a place of resentment?
Right. I mean, you're definitely onto something there. This is obviously huge for relationships of any kind. You know, criticism, as we all know, for all of us, ADHD or otherwise, increases the chances of shutdowns. And because ADHD brains are highly sensitive to perceived threats or rejection, it's even more so for us. So criticism activates the threat response and then the brain goes offline. So it really is important for both parties, for the ADHDer with themselves, curiosity over judgment, curiosity over criticism, looking at things in more of a collaborative fashion, like we're collaborating over correcting, neutral observation, external structure where you can help them. Now, I think that the ADHDer, again, also has responsibility in this. Hey, yeah, I did tell you to set that alarm. Do you want me to not do that and we risk that you don't do it and you miss it? Like, how can I help you? Where can I support you? What do you need from me? And again, that takes work from the ADHDer. What do I need? And how can I look at letting go of the shame of asking for help?
Huge.
So big. Because if I have to ask, hey, and I mean, again, this is going to be different probably for a roommate situation versus a co-working situation versus a romantic partner situation. I'm a lot more likely to ask my husband, hey, can you help me with this? Help me remember to put this in the calendar or set this reminder or, whatever, versus a roommate or a colleague. But if you can have a good conversation with a manager you're roommates, you're living together, there needs to be some form of communication. Hey, I really struggle with this. Can you make sure that you put the clean and dirty magnet on the dishwasher for me or that kind of things. And when they do, inevitably, the ADHDer, when they do misstep, instead of being like, dude, what is wrong with you? That's not going to be very helpful. So instead of just being like, hey, like, I'm not upset. I'm not mad. I'm just trying to help you figure out like what went on. Could I have done something to help? Not condescending, not like, oh, poor little simpleton. That's not going to help either. No patronizing here. Just solid friendship and collaboration, communication. That is what we really need. We need the understanding of, it's all right. I get it. Even if you don't, even if you're like, I don't understand. And then the validation that, that we're not terrible people. Those are, I think, really important aspects of supporting your ADHD partner, paying attention. And if you notice something, hey, I noticed that this and this happened. Is that something that you've noticed? Is it something I can help with? That kind of thing of helping to point things out versus you did it again. Oh, you didn't notice that? Not surprised. Shocker. Right? That kind of language is not going to help any of us. So compassion, understanding, validation, things that we all need.
Mm-hmm. Diagnosis or not, those are all just good relationship advice across the board.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Are there any dopaminergic hacks that we didn't cover that might be useful to someone listening to this?
Yes, kind of like, we did cover that. We covered the dopamine stacking. I think that this is going to come down to a lot of the stuff that we've, that people already know about. So, music, timers, race the clock, right? So if you've got, 20 minutes before you need to call your mom, what can you get done in those 20 minutes? Set an alarm and then race it. Just quickly pick up the living room, pick up the kitchen, throw the dishes in the dishwasher, and, put the clothes upstairs. You don't even have to fold them, right? Stuff like that. I also think a dopamine hack that people don't really think about is following through on what you say you're going to follow through on. It creates self-trust. And every time you do the thing, you're like, holy shit, my headphones are where I need them to be. This is wild. Especially depending on where you've come, like how far you've come. Because I cannot tell you how much I used to lose things. Still do on occasion, but it's gotten a lot better. That kind of thing feels so good. I will always have a floor drobe. Like my room is just always going to be a mess. I can lean into that space, luckily. But I have a clothes hamper for dirty clothes. And then I have one for clean clothes. Because that's where the floor drobe comes from. It's just clean clothes that I've like tried on and don't have the energy capacity, dopamine to hang back up. But if they're just strewn all over my room, that creates external chaos, which does not help my internal chaos. But if I can put them all in this other basket, yes, it's still chaos, but it's that slightly organized chaos. Things like that, it feels so good to be able to walk in and be like, it's still a little bit of a shit show, but it's so much better than it used to be. Every time I put my keys on the hook and I go to leave the house and my keys are on the hook, wild. Right? My phone is charged. My headphones are charged. Seriously? That feeling is dopamine in itself. Now, that's a, what's the word I'm looking for? Gratification, delayed gratification. It's delayed gratification. And we struggle with that. We want instant gratification, which who doesn't, right? But setting these things up for ourselves to get that delayed gratification, it's like a bonus point of dopamine that you didn't even have to it's a gift from your past self. So I think thinking of it in that way, I think body doubling can be a really great dopamine hit. I don't know if you're familiar with body doubling. So I have a coaching community and we have 3 body doubling sessions a day where you just log on. Everybody logs on a Google Meet. You just quickly say, what are you going to work on for the next hour? So I'm going to work on my Pinterest marketing. Okay, I'm going to clean my kitchen. I'm going to, meal prep. Okay, cool. See you guys in an hour. Everybody turns off their mic. You go about your business, do your stuff. And then at the end, you check back in. Hey, how'd you get on? Yep, I'm almost done. I've got one more thing to pin and then I'm set for the month. How'd you get? Yep, done with my kitchen. I cannot tell you how insane body doubling is, where we will have calls where people are like, I have been putting this off for 3 weeks. Today's the day. And they get it done. Like it really does help just having that set time that this is the time I'm going to sit down at my computer and I'm going to work on this thing. And I'm going to tell other people that I'm working on this thing. And then they're going to ask, did you work on the thing? And of course, there's no judgment there. If you just sat there and didn't get anything done, I'm not going to be like, really? Well, right? But it is crazy what that time will do and how good it can feel at the end of that hour for sure. So I love body doubling as like a little dopamine hack. Obviously, yeah, music, novelty, visual progress tracking. So everybody loves a good streak. So can you, if there's something that you're trying to do daily or 3 times a week, can you find a way to visualize that? You see big X's on there. That kind of stuff can be really exciting. Like I said, gamifying tasks, racing the clock, movement, just in general, the, back to basics that I do quite a few workshops on back to basics, and it's sleep, water, food, movement, and sunlight. Go back to the basics. How are all of those looking for you? And they're probably going to be up and down. It's not going to be like consistent 100%. That's not what we're going for. We're going for, yeah, I'm really taking a look at my sleep hygiene. I'm really trying to make sure I'm making that a priority. Not because I should, but because if I sleep better, I'm going to be a more regulated human. And that feels nice, right? I need to drink more water, not because I should, even though I should, but because it's going to help literally lubricate my brain. So all of those kinds of things. And again, when you're showing up for yourself and you're keeping these promises to yourself and you're having these, like you were talking about the rules. I call them rules ish because as ADHDers, we're probably going to break them here and there. But really having like, I'm in bed by 10 o'clock. That is the rule. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, but the rule is 10 o'clock. The rule is I'm off my phone by 10:30. Some people have the rule where phone's not even in the bedroom. Right? I love your rule of if I need to scroll, I'm not doing it at my desk. I'm going to the couch. Yeah, that's great. Separating those things. So yeah, I think all of those kinds of things can lead to little sneaky dopamine hits, leaning into the dopamine, the low dopamine hits. Because what we're looking at are a lot of people, social media, just ping, 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 ping. If your phone or something like that is a problem, try more long form media. Get on YouTube and watch something that's a solid 15, 20 minutes instead of this 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. All of those things kind of help to regulate your dopamine. Yeah.
I like that a lot. There was so much in that, and it reminded me of this quote that I'm sure you'll appreciate, which is that self-esteem is built on esteemable acts. So when you tell yourself, I'm going to keep my keys on the hook, and then you prove to yourself that you can do it, it's going to build that resilience and build that self-esteem. And it ties into mindset. So you're going to be able to prove to yourself, hey, I am a person that does that. And that's going to give you a reward.
Yes, 100%. And like I said, the self-trust there is so big because we don't trust ourselves. We struggle with so many things. We have, decision paralysis, analysis paralysis, decision fatigue, all of these things that make us second guess or question all of that. So any of these little things that we can do to improve and increase that self-trust is going to filter into other parts of our life. And it's huge. Yeah, I love that quote. That's a good one.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, Leah Carroll, if people want to work with you or learn more about what you're doing, where should they go?
Yeah, so you can pop over to Instagram. That's definitely probably where I'm the most active, even though I am not super active because social media drives me insane. But I'm over there at adhd.coach.leah. You can get a free call with me. That link is there as well. So before I work with anybody, they get a 45-minute free coaching call. It is not a sales call. It is a tried and true coaching call to really see what you're struggling with and how we can address your specific brand of ADHD, because like I said, it is not a one size fits all. So that's really the best place to start. I offer one-on-one coaching as well as a group membership, depending on what your needs are. But yeah, everybody starts with that free call, and then we can go from there. You can pop over to my website if you want to know a little bit more about me, leahccoaching.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
This has been great. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.